Has anyone seen my lorazepam? Girl, you ain't even that old, but I knew for a fact that you were going to be a pill counter. There was a lot going on in this episode. Let's just get right into it. So we're here at episode 4, Hide or Seek. So we start off with Jacqueline over here calling her man Harrison. She's trying to get him, and he's at the set or something like that. And she gave him that tone like, call me, as if he hadn't been answering the phone. So it sounded like it's trouble in paradise. And it sounds like Lori and Kate were correct about the situation. And so we head over to Belinda's villa, and she's talking on the phone to her son Zion. And he said, hey, I'm on my way. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. And then Belinda, after she gets off the phone, is looking about again. Now, I said she keeps hearing these sounds, and it better not be a monkey. Like I said, if it's a monkey coming out that room, I'm fighting somebody. The rewrite should have already happened when I said it last week. And then we get over there to those rat lifts. And let me tell you, Tim is over there sneaking another pill and another pill. Like, bruh, she only gave you one. Why are you sneaking 2 at a time now? It's not like she got an unlimited supply of pills, fam. So then we get over to Gaytook, and he's talking to Mook. He said, remember when you said we never been on a date for real? He said, well, let's make it official, 'cause we ain't getting no younger, baby. And he was like, let's go on one for real. And at first she was like, And I was like, hold up, Mook. Don't play in my man's face again. Don't mess this up for me. Honestly, I should be talking to Gaytuck about that part. We'll talk about that later. Now, she did invite him out to her dance show, so that's kind of cute or whatever. And he was like, hey, I'm going to have to go because I have to have a meeting with Fabian and Pilek. And Mook was like, for what? You getting a promotion? And Gaytuck was like, oof, girl, don't give me the line. I don't know. We're going to have to see. So he gets into that meeting with Fabian and Pilek. And Fabian is like, Gaytuck, people like you. You're really nice, but this job is about protection of the gate, not just waving at people as they come in. And then he got up and dusted himself off and said, I'm going to leave y'all to it. So then after he left, Pilek said, I decided to give you a gun. And that is where I paused it right there. Because what do you mean you decided to give him a gun now? So you mean to tell me he was top flight security of the world? You didn't even give him a whistle. Not a slingshot to protect the spot. Y'all just left that man there with fisticuffs to protect y'all. That's crazy. Because if somebody rolled up with an AK or something like that, what is he going to slap the bullets out the way? Y'all set him up for failure. But anyway, Pilek said, hey, I'll take you to the range and teach you how to use the gun. So then we get back to the Ratliff Villa. And Saxon is being real loud with that blender. And it's not really bothering Piper or Lachlan because they're just sitting there reading their books quietly. And then Tim comes down. That man done popped too many pills and done drank too much liquor or whatever because he can't stand that noise. So he must be hungover. And then he tried to tell a lie that nobody believed because this man said, I'm jet lagged. And I know that Saxon is a little bit off mentally, but he's sharp enough to know that they've been there for 3 days. And then he hands Lachlan this protein shake and tells him to drink it, even though he already said he didn't want one. And when I think about it, I've never seen Lachlan going to the gym or anything like that. I've just seen him being fed these like protein shakes and being told how his body should look. But then when you think back to Victoria's dream and he's over there with the trans women, like she might already know that he's going to be ligga bigga tigga. And it's just like maybe his body is not lining up with what he actually identifies as. We just don't know that yet, but we going to find out. And Saxon is trying to force Lachlan to be something that he isn't. And Lachlan hates the taste of the protein shakes. But then something interesting that Saxon said is, we don't do it for the taste. We do it for the high T and BDE. Now, the thing is, if he's trying to transition, does he want high T? Probably not. Now, I think Piper spoke up so she could protect Lachlan because she told Saxon, you know, girls really aren't into jack dudes like that. And then he was like, oh yeah, well, what do they like? Gender goblins that tuck? So now we're really still talking about identity and stuff like that. And then he snatched the book out of her hand and started teasing her about her own sexuality and all this other kind of stuff. And, you know, Lachlan was laughing for a second, but then he stopped himself. Because if you really think about it, she was protecting you, stupid. And then Big Victoria burst onto the scene and she says, kids, have any of you taken any of my lorazepams? And of course, all 3 of them said no. And she said, you know, I just had the prescription filled, but I noticed that it was a little light. I mean, who didn't know she was going to count those pills? And it's weird because she asked everybody else in the room except for Percocet. Papa Percocet. This man been popping all the pills. And Saxon asked her why she even needed to take those pills. And she said, you know, I use them for certain situations that make me anxious, like getting on a boat with strangers that I don't know. And then Saxon was like, well, you don't need them when you go to the club. And she said, well, that's because I know the people at the club and they know me. And then it hit Tim. And he just looked so troubled. And Victoria was like, "Are you okay?" And he was like, "The club." And she's like, "What about the club?" And Tim couldn't say this, but he was thinking, the folks at the club was about to know all of our business, and I can't face that kind of embarrassment. And then he just raised his hands above his head, and that robe fell open, and you saw that he was going commando in chief. And this man done flashed Piper and Lachlan with that peen in between, and they freaked out. Now, this little pat on the head from Lachlan to Piper was pretty funny to me. I was like, oh my gosh, Tim, you are losing it right now. He was on more than cloud 9. That man had to be on cloud 18. So then we get over here to Chelsea and Rick. And Chelsea was like, things happen in threes. First there was the robbery. Then there was the snake. So maybe we shouldn't go on this boat. And Rick was like, that's cool because I wasn't coming anyway. And she was like, hold up. What do you mean? He was like, well, I'm going to Bangkok, girl. And she said, but your flight don't leave about 7. I thought you were coming on this boat with me. And then she started crying to guilt him. And I guess he cares about her a little bit because he actually went on the boat trip with her. So now we over at the table with the Powerpuff Girls. And Jacqueline is still looking at her phone because it looks desolate since Harrison is not hitting her back. And Kate was like, now, girl, you're not supposed to be on your phone out here. And Jacqueline was like, I know, girl. And Jacqueline was vulnerable enough to kind of share with her friends and say, hey, Harrison is AWOL because he has not been hitting me back on my text. Now, Blossom and Bubbles were still being shady with their looks. She was like, I told you, girl. And Jacqueline was like, you know what? We should have fun today. Now, that is usually the famous last words of people when they're out of the country and they go off script. But for our own entertainment purposes, we shall allow it. And then Valentine said, sure, you can skip yoga. I'll get you a car. Now, Chelsea is such a sweetheart because when she and Rick were walking through the lobby of the hotel, she decided to go in and check on the employee that was at the store when they got robbed. And while she was doing that, Amrita and Rick ran into each other. And Amrita said, you know what? You've touched my heart. And I hope you hear me when I say this, but you are not stuck. And you can let go of your story. You can find peace in this life. And you can tell something landed on them. But it'll take a little while for it to marinate, but it'll blossom at the right time in this series. So it's time for the Rattlers to walk over to the boat. And let me tell you, this song right here is so good. I don't really know what they're saying, but it's jamming. And when they get on the boat, Victoria was like, where can I put my purse? And Chloe was like, just put it anywhere. And she hid it behind a pillow, but she really should have hid it from just Tim. Because Buddy pocketed her pills as soon as he saw Rick and Chelsea trot up on that deck. And so the Powerpuff Girls end up over at the Shady Pines Resort because they saw all these elderly people there and they started talking to them. And then Buttercup, aka Jacqueline, started looking around and she started recognizing maybe her mortality. So she was like, ooh, I got to get up out of here. Valentine was trying to make sure that they went to a safe spot and they didn't come up missing. So then we get over to Belinda and Pornchai, and you can tell on her face that something's visibly wrong with Belinda. And Pornchai was like, what's up? And she says, you know that guy, Gary, whatever his name is? I know him. Now, she said it was nothing, but it was enough for her to mention to him. It's weighing on her just a little bit. So back on USS Greg, and Piper and Lachlan are having a conversation, and Piper was like, hey, I'm going to need you to back me up tonight at dinner because I'm going to share some news with Mom and Dad. And Lachlan was like, what is the news? And she was like, oh, I'm going to move over here to Thailand. I'm going to be with the monks. And he was like, I thought we came over here for your dissertation. And then he was like, what about me? And it sounded like he was about to cry, honestly. And she was like, boy, did you forget? You about to be in college. And honestly, Lachlan's face told a different story. I'm not sure if it was disappointment, sadness, anger, or more than one, or even that he's going to college. Like, I don't know what that face means. They didn't even get to finish the conversation because I think Lachlan was a little bit uncomfortable, and Saxon calling him over was like the perfect exit. And Saxon was like, now don't sit over there with that lonely Loch Ness. And he was like, here, take this beer and come over here with me while we talk to these women. I wonder if something happened between him and his sister because why does he treat her like that? He does not like his sister. And so we get over here to Victoria and she's trying to make conversation with these folks and they are not her people. And she leaned over to Tim and was like, how long is this boat ride? And she also told him that he was acting weird, which he was. But I'm trying to figure out why she hadn't put 2 and 2 together yet. Now I know that's your husband and you got blinders on for him, but this is obvious that he done popped so many pills that you might as well name him Lorazepam. He can't even sit up straight. So then she walks off because she don't want anything else to do with that conversation. And then the odd couple asked him what he does for a living. And he slurred out finance. And I knew he wasn't going to be sober most of the episode, but this is bad. I mean, he's talking about his father and his grandfather's success in business. And then he went on to say, I'm glad both my parents are dead. And the couple looked at him and was like, ooh, we gotta go. I mean, how you run weird people off, bruh? So Victoria gets downstairs. She's trying to get to her purse. This is a very stressful situation for her, so she's trying to find her pills. And to her dismay, the pills were not there. So then we get over to the hotel and Jacqueline confronts Valentine. Like, why did you set us up and take us over to that, like, old folks' home? And he was like, you didn't like it? She was like, absolutely not. And so they kidnapped him and said, you're going to have to take us somewhere fun. So after Piper kind of had that conversation with Lachlan and it didn't seem like he was going to stick around with her, she had to move on to plan B. So she started thanking Tim for coming to Thailand and trying things out. And then he started crying. And at first I was like, well, maybe it's not the drugs. Maybe he's in his feelings about the fact that things are about to change forever. And then he started messing with her face in a weird way. And I was like, oh yes, it is the drugs. And then Victoria comes back and says, so now the whole bottle of pills is missing. And Tim tried to gaslight her. He was like, oh, well, maybe you lost them or you didn't bring them with you, all this kind of stuff. Not you being the thief that steals and then either helps somebody look or then play in their face like you don't know what already happened to the stuff. And Piper was like, Ma, you don't really need those pills. And Victoria was like, actually, I do, because I'm on this boat and I feel trapped with people that are not my people and I just don't want to do this. Now, my thing is, she didn't have to come. Like, I think if you deal with anxiety and you know that this is not something you really want to do, you don't know these people, none of that kind of stuff, you could have stayed back at the hotel. We would have seen you when we came back to the crib. You could have been in more of a safe zone instead of being out here in a place that makes you uncomfortable. And Piper told Victoria, you don't have to be so judgy. And Victoria was like, you just as judgy as I am. And honestly, don't judge me because I'm your mother. And Piper apologized. Meanwhile, Rick is still being a jerk to Chelsea. And she had to grab him by the hand and said, hey, let's go on over here to the edge of this boat real quick so she can gather him. And she asked him a question. She said, when are you going to let me in? And she said, for starters, I want to know why we're here. And then, why are you going to Bangkok? At first, he was reluctant to tell her, but then Rick went ahead and spilled the beans. He said, the guy that owns this hotel murdered my father. And I thought he was going to be here, but he's in Bangkok because he had a stroke. So I'm going to have to come see him in Bangkok. And he said that his father was a really good man and he was trying to do the right thing for people in Thailand and he was taken away from him. So he never got to meet his dad. And Chelsea is so funny because she was like, is this the bit where you killed my father, prepare to die? And I was like, girl, not you out here trying to be funny while this man is spilling his soul to you. I bet it felt good for him to get that off his chest. But he said he's still going to Bangkok though. So the Powerpuff Girls and Valentine make it to Sunkram. And Valentine says, hey, I'm going to go assemble my crew and I'll be back in an hour when this club opens up. So y'all can go walk around and shop or whatever. And it was a whole bunch of people that had water guns and stuff like that. And he said, oh yeah, they have water fights all the time. It's super chill. And, you know, it probably would have been chill. But then Kate had to go and pat a kid on the head like a puppy. And that's where she effed up. Because that kid was ready to go to war about that touch. Your aura shouldn't touch my aura. That's the rule of thumb. So, of course, they got wet and wild outside and had to run into one of these stores. And it was so funny because Lori was like, is there another exit? And the guy that works at the store just pointed to the entrance. And it was like, no, is there like a back door? He just kind of looked at him. And those water warriors are waiting outside of that door, just waiting on them to come back out. It was actually pretty funny. I bet she won't touch nobody else's kid. So Belinda was sitting out by the pool, reading and relaxing. And you know what goes good with that? Unnecessary stress. So she moseyed over to her laptop, got to the Googles, and said, you know what, let me type in Tanya's name. And she uncovered the fact that Tanya had died mysteriously in Italy. And the husband, Greg, was MIA when the authorities needed to ask him some questions. And this story had Belinda clutching every pearl in the world when she read it. And then she decided to look up Greg. And then she was really pissed when she realized that it was actually the person that she talked to at that table that lied to her and tried to pretend like he wasn't who she said he was. She was willing to burn everything down at that point. So back at the boat, Chloe was asking Greg if she could take the boat to the full moon party tonight at Campania. And he was like, I can't really go because I got some stuff I need to take care of. And she was like, cool. Well, can I borrow the boat and we just drop you off wherever you're going and still go to the party? And so down at the bar area, Tim is sitting there and Greg walks up to him and he was like, You want another? He was like, yeah. And then Tim was like, I heard you live in Thailand. Do you like it? And Greg said, oh, I love it. I don't plan on leaving. And then Tim was like, well, I heard that people that move to Thailand either move here because they're looking for something or they're hiding from something. And Greg said, neither. But we all know that to be a lie, bruh. And then he turned around and asked Tim, what about you? To which Tim replied, oh, I'm just out here having vacation with my family. But you never know. So they're getting off the boat and I know Victoria is living for that. So then Saxon and Lachlan walk up and Saxon is like, Lachlan and I are going to go to the full moon party. So we're going to hop back on the boat. And you could tell that there was disappointment all on Piper's face because she was like, you're not coming to dinner, Lachlan? Now, if we being real, he is very young and impressionable. And honestly, I think Saxon is just a lot stronger willed than you. I also thought that the younger siblings were closer, but it appears that they are not as close as I thought they were because I'm sure Lachlan has some stuff he wants to tell Piper that I don't think he told her, and then I'm sure that Piper has more information that she wants to share with him, but they don't seem as close as I thought they were at the beginning. Now, I'm a little nervous with Lachlan going out with Saxon like that because they're going to be drinking. All kinds of stuff could happen. I feel like something's going to happen at that party that's going to change Lachlan's life forever, though. So we get back over to Chelsea and Rick, and Chelsea is pretty much begging Rick not to go to Bangkok. And Rick was like, the guy ruined my life from day one, and he doesn't have to answer to me? And I'm thinking, no, Rick, he doesn't have to answer to you because he doesn't know you like that. Also, we got to stop playing like your daddy was just a saint. Just because you do good doesn't mean you are all the way good. We don't know why he was really in Thailand. He could have been over there trying to hide and seek himself. And then he lied and said, oh, I just want to go look this man in the face and tell him what he did to me. Yes, because that's exactly why you fly so far away from your country to talk to a person. I guess y'all going to have a pillow fight after that? Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And then Chelsea's not dumb. She was like, I have a bad feeling about this. Don't go. And honestly, I think her feeling was probably a good gut feeling. And then she tried to beg him again, but he pretty much said, I'm still going. So 3 of the Ratliffs are back at the resort, and they are at dinner. Victoria decided she was going to roast everybody that was on that boat. She was like, what was that? She called it a convention for con men and tax cheats. And that's where Piper said, Mom, I'm sure y'all cheat on y'all's taxes too. And she was like, not so badly that we have to leave the country, but it's written all over his face. And she just kept going in, said, you don't know how lucky you are to have a father that's an actual Boy Scout. And Piper's like, I am lucky. Now that could naturally be how she feels about him. But she also has to play it safe because you don't want to rock the boat too much. You're already about to drop a bomb on him by yourself. And then Tim got up and said, hey, I need to excuse myself for a second, and went straight to Pam to ask for his phone. And she was like, oh no. And I cracked up. And he was like, I'm not here to play games with you, girl. Just give me the phone. So then Belinda walks through the lobby and she sees Greg over there talking to Fabian. Now, I'm assuming that's the business that he told Chloe he had to deal with. But either way, you need to stay off my Belinda. Well, actually, that is Pornchard's Belinda. You know he's never too far behind. So then Tim turns on his phone and that thing lit up like the Vegas Strip with all those notifications. And then Pam said, gosh, you must be popular. So then we get over to the guardhouse and Gaytuk is over there gawking and gandering at the gun in amazement, as if he's never touched one, which he has not. And while he's doing that, Mook shows up and just takes all his attention away. And he was like, wow, where you going looking that good, girl? And I'm sure she noticed the gun and she said, did you get a promotion? And he was like, nah. And she was like, I'm sure it will come. And that was very nice of her to encourage him. Honestly, I think she just wants somebody that's ambitious. And if that's Gaytuk, then cool. If it's not, then she's going to have to move in another direction. I think she actually likes Gaytuk though. She just wants him to want more. So she gets ready to leave and he said, I'm going to walk you to the spot. And they're walking in the opposite direction of Tim, who's on the phone with the legal rep, Chuck. And Chuck said, Kenny out here singing to the cops like Whitney. And Chuck said the best bet is for them to make a deal. And Tim was like, you must be higher than me if you think I'm going to take a deal. And side note, this conversation sobered Tim all the way up real quick, especially when he heard Chuck say, they probably already froze your assets. And he said, you likely going to have to do some time in the Fed. And he said, they're not that bad. And what made me laugh a little bit is he was talking about them like they were some kind of destination prison or something. He's like, I can put you in touch with a few of them. And Tim was like, you must be out your mind if you think for a second I'm going to prison. He said, I'd rather be 6 feet under. Don't play in my face. And he was like, what am I supposed to tell my family? That I'm... Ugh. Ugh, that pee tastes terrible. I'm poor? That I'm going to prison? Is that your legal advice? And then he gave that man a smooth cussing out. And Chuck is better than me because I'm going to tell you like this. You only get one shot with me. You cuss me out, I'm going to tell them folks that I don't know you and I'm going to drop you as a client. And for a second, I thought Tim was about to have a heart attack. But he had been drinking and popping all those pills, so he was about due for a throw up. And we also have to factor in that going to prison or the thought of going to prison, that's one of the leading causes of vomiting. Don't go looking to fact check me. I've already looked it up and it is absolutely true in my eyes. And as he's heaving, he looks up and gets a bad idea. Buddy, you're not making it better. So then Gay Tuck is over there trying to make sure that Mook got to the spot safely. It's a cute little exchange that they're having. She finally acknowledged his date request for tomorrow, which is a good thing. Now the chit chat was cool, but I'm thinking to myself, aren't you security? Like you are literally the gatekeeper and it's down while you're away. And while he's over here shooting a breeze with her, Tim done breezed off with what he was supposed to be shooting. Now while walking back to his post, he might as well have been 20 feet tall. That man was floating in the clouds. And rightfully so, because some stuff seems to be looking up. And then he gets back into his post and he sits down there comfortably and he looks and he realizes that thing that he left out, sort of like a toy that he was going to play with later, was missing. I mean, why were you so careless about this? I wouldn't even leave my lunch out that long for somebody to swipe, let alone a firearm. I mean, you are in Thailand. And let's be real, y'all got some different kind of creatures over there. So you got a whole gang of monkeys that could have swiped it. You could have had a giant huntsman spider pop up in there, or it can't really pick up a gun or whatever. But that Indian spotted cobra that we saw last week, somebody corrected me in the chat, and I appreciate you for that, could still be on the loose. Could have just slithered right on up in there and snatched whatever it wanted. And you would have been none the wiser. Like you were doing so well. I don't want you to mess this stuff up with Mook, because Mook is finally going to go on a date with you. What happens next is on you, bruh. And so Tim gets back to the building, and Pam pops out of nowhere, and she was like, you ready to give it back? And he was like, give what back? And she was like, your phone. And she said, hopefully you won't need it again. And he said, I won't. Now, this could go a number of ways. He could just be getting a new phone because he's not going back to the States and he's getting rid of the one that he has. Or he could do something ridiculous and cause harm to his family. And that makes me a little nervous because my original thought was they could all just stay in Thailand. They could split up like they did and set it off and go their separate ways. Lachlan will be over there with the Ligga Bigga Tigger. Saxon will be on the boat taking all the girls from the bald-headed white man. I don't know what Tim would be doing, but then Piper can be a monk, and then Victoria's the only one that's a wild card for me that I'm like, she might need to go back to the States. She might have to divorce him. She has very specific needs, and she got to be around people that say, I do declare, because those are her people. And next we get over to Greg's crib, and I'm like, this is nice. Like, do I need to move to Thailand? Trying to see if my little money can make something shake. And so he done opened up his little MacBook, and now he's looking up Belinda. And I'm a little nervous now because I would hate for Tanya's money to screw Belinda twice. Greg has enough money to hire some shooters if he wanted to. And that's pretty much it for the episode. There was so much that happened. And I'm so on edge because you never know what's about to happen. So what did y'all think of the episode? Feel free to comment, drop a like for that algorithm situation, and subscribe if you like. Hit that notification bell so you'll know when I drop a new video. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.